Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So this felt kind of inevitable. When we signed Carson Wentz, one of the things he hadn't been able to do throughout his career was stay healthy. Now, he was able to play all 17 games last season for the Indianapolis Colts. However, he did sustain an injury in the preseason, or rather in the offseason, into training camp that limited him to no preseason action, and he was able to make it back by week 1, but he was not fully healthy. So this is something that he's had an issue with throughout his career. He was banged up in Philadelphia. He was banged up last year with the Indianapolis Colts, although he didn't miss any games. And so he comes to Washington. He's actually able to stay healthy, actually able to get some work in the preseason, was feeling good early on. But again, this always seems to rear its ugly head with Carson Wentz. And so thus, we saw the play in the Bears game in which he hit his hand on a defender's hand during the course of the game. After that, he was seen constantly trying to keep that finger from going numb on him. And it was a cool night in Chicago. He had a little heat pack in his back pouch, and so he kept putting his hands in his pouch to try to keep that finger loose. It didn't ultimately affect him in the game, but you knew once the blood got to settle, the swelling set in, he was going to be in trouble. We saw it with Dak Prescott. Now we're seeing it again here with Carson Wentz. Broken ring finger was the diagnosis. That was the report over the weekend. And we just heard a new report from Adam Schefter that says Wentz is having surgery. Anytime you hear of a second opinion, that means the first opinion wasn't what the player wanted to hear, nor the team. So now he's seeking a second opinion because he wants someone to tell him what he really wants to hear. And ultimately, that second opinion is usually going to back up the first opinion, and now you got to have surgery. So it's rare where the second opinion is that of, hey, you don't really need surgery. This isn't as bad as you think. Hey, this is what you can do. Here's an alternative. TJ Watt was one of the few times we've seen that when he had the pec issue. He thought he was done for the season. He goes to another specialist. They give him a second opinion, and they say, hey, you don't need surgery. You just need to wait and allow it to heal up, but you don't have to have surgery. Your season's not done. That's not the case with Wentz. Reportedly, with this injury comes surgery, and Adam Schefter reported that Wentz is due to have surgery today, probably having it as we speak, and he's going to be out indefinitely. The timetable is usually 4 to 6 weeks for these types of injuries. We've seen this so many times throughout the course of history with quarterbacks banging their thumb or their fingers on helmets and things of that nature. So this is not new, but this is the caveat to this situation. Wentz wasn't having a great year. This offense was struggling mightily. He was struggling to kind of fit into what Scott Turner wanted him to do. The offensive line has had a huge hand in the struggles of this offense and his lack of getting comfortable in this offense and comfortability. And so for whatever reason, and we could list all the reasons and they're all viable, he wasn't playing at his best. Now, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great either. And the offense had really regressed to the point where it seemed like if we weren't going to stop teams from scoring, 17 points, we weren't going to be able to win games. And that's a far cry from where we thought we would be at this point of the season. When we came into this season, with all the hype and the fanfare of what this offense could be with all the weapons that we were now boasting, he was supposed to take the offense to new heights with his ability to throw the football, his arm strength, the ability to hit the deep ball, the explosive plays that this offense had been lacking for the last 3 or 4 years. He was supposed to bring all of that to the table, and he's shown us flashes of that. We've seen in specific games, whether it be Tennessee or Jacksonville in particular, Detroit to a lesser extent, but he's shown us the ability to have quick strike, ability and hit big plays. And, it's been a long time since we've seen a one-play 75-yard drive here in Washington, but we've seen that this year, right? Well, unfortunately, that may be done in Washington now that Wentz is hurt. And, you know, a lot of you asked for this, and I always tell people, be careful what you ask for. You just might get it. Now you're going to see Taylor Heinicke. A lot of you were clamoring for Taylor Heinicke, and now you're going to get it. And so I'll say this. Taylor Heinicke is going to run this offense more effectively, okay? He's going to run it more efficiently. We're going to stay on schedule. He's going to convert more third downs. He's going to use his legs, so that becomes a part of the offense. He's going to run Scott Turner's system a lot better than Carson Wentz ever could because he's so much more comfortable. And again, we heard this from Ryan Fitzpatrick about the lack of adjusting to parts, whereas Scott Turner is a rigid, this is my system, you must acquiesce to what I want to do and not the other way around. I think the best play callers and coordinators in this league, and this goes for both sides of the football, are the guys that take the players that they have, take their strengths, and they mold a game plan around that. And that's not what Scott Turner does. Scott Turner takes his system and says, hey, you guys have to fit into what I want to do. And so you're going to probably be better served with Taylor Heinicke being in Scott Turner's system because Taylor Heinicke doesn't have a specific skill set that says, hey, you have to play within, you know, what I can do. He can mold himself into what Scott Turner wants to do. We've seen it before. We know he's comfortable doing that. And so Scott Turner doesn't have to change anything to try to acquiesce. He can just say, hey, here's what we want to run, and Heinicke can go out and run it. So from an offensive standpoint, I think we're going to be much better off from, you know, moving the chains and staying ahead of down and distance and, you know, not getting the defense super tired and having to come right back on the field 3 and out. But where you're gonna find that we are lacking is in the explosive plays, I think. Now, here's an interesting thing. There have been times where guys have been wide open this season, and if the quarterback would have been able to go through his progressions faster, he would have found these guys. Heinicke may be able to do that, and maybe with the playmakers that we now have, with the Curtis Samuel, with the Jahan Dotson, who we think will be back this week, with Cole Turner, with, you know, the Logan Thomases of the world, which, you know, Heinicke really didn't get to work with last year at all. With all these weapons, and then you factor in the running backs and you factor in Terry as well, maybe, just maybe, this offense can be dynamic, can be explosive if he can just get the playmakers the football. We'll see. But the deep ball is probably dead now that Heinicke is back in the fold. And I think that there are pros and cons to this. I'm actually excited to see Heinicke get an opportunity with the way the defense is playing now and the excitement surrounding the running back position now with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson being a dual threat back there with the sprinkle of J.D. McKissick. I'm actually excited to see what this offense can be with a guy that knows it a little bit better and can run it effectively and moreover, can use his legs when things break down because that was something Wentz just really wasn't capable of doing any longer. So, I thought we were going to get more, you know, off-schedule playmaking from Carson Wentz. I actually think Heinicke may be better in that department. Again, not necessarily the best of arm strength, per se, but I think what we found is that Carson Wentz isn't what he once was from a playmaking off-schedule standpoint as well. So I said all of that to say this. I think this offense has a chance to be more efficient, score more points, be better time of possession wise, stay ahead of the down and distance and sticks. And I think it has a chance to be overall more effective. It also can be a turnover machine. Now, it's not like Wentz was taking care of the football and he was squeaky clean. We just had our first game of the season where we didn't turn it over at a bare minimum once. So it's not like Wentz was taking care of the football and he was pristine in that regard. But we've seen games absolutely go to hell in a handbasket behind Taylor Heinicke pressing after making one mistake and taking one mistake and turning it into two, and two turning it into three, and throwing us out of ball games or fumbling the football. We've seen that. So there's that factor as well. That said, this is what Heinicke was brought, why we have him here. I talked about him being one of the better backup quarterbacks in football. And I meant that when I said it, and I mean that now. Feel confident about him coming in the game. And I'll even take it a step further. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to what happened in New Orleans with the Saints, but Jameis Winston, who started out the season, he was okay. He wasn't great. Was injured. And so Andy Dalton comes in. He's playing well. The Saints are winning football games. They did lose this past weekend, but Andy Dalton played well again. And it was really more so the defense than it was Andy Dalton's play. But there's this conversation that is kind of leading towards Andy Dalton may be able to wrestle that job away from Jameis Winston permanently if he continues to play well, and to the point where their head coach has not named the starter for Thursday Night Football, as the Saints will travel to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. I only bring that up because here we are sitting here 6 weeks into the season. Washington's 2-4. Offense has taken a massive step backwards after a hot start. They've looked worse and worse, it seems like, as the weeks have progressed. They can't score points. They went from scoring 28, which is the season high in week 1, to 27 the following week, to down to 8, then 10 in week 4 against Dallas, then 17 against Tennessee, and now 12 against the Bears. They've struggled to score 20 points in each of the last 4 weeks. So if Heineke comes in here, and this is a stretch of football that is very doable, you know, Green Bay, Indianapolis, Minnesota, and then you got the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football. And it'd be a shame if Wentz wasn't able to play, but you know what? It might not be the worst thing in the world, him not being able to play going back to Philadelphia, because they would have probably lit him up. And mentally, I don't know if he would have been tough enough to take what they would have been giving him on that Monday night. That said, if Heineke plays to the level we know he's capable of consistently, and this is the argument of all those that were in Heineke's corner that wanted to see him get an opportunity. You know, this last year was his first time as a starter, and he made some mistakes, but what quarterback doesn't make a mistake or make mistakes in their first year as a starter? Give this guy more time. You've given him more weapons now. Let's see what he can do with more weapons, with, you know, healthy guys like Logan Thomas, who wasn't healthy last year, more weapons at the tight end position, more weapons at the receiver position. You know, this line is not getting it done at the level that we thought they would. So you need a mobile quarterback. We think we may have stabilized the offensive line. I don't think it's completely fixed, but I do think they've stabilized it to the point where it's not a sieve. Can Heineke come in and show that he's the best quarterback on the roster right now for this team as it's constructed? Not necessarily long-term answer, but in this season, for where we're trying to go right now, could he provide the answer that the coaching staff is looking for, to the point where when Carson Wentz is healthy, they tell him, hey, you go ahead and keep sitting on the bench. We appreciate what you've done for us, but we're going to roll with Taylor Heineke. That's a possibility. I'm just saying, we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Hell, by the time he's ready to go in probably 4 to 6 weeks, we might be completely out of this thing. Season's dead, and we may be turning to Sam Howell for all we know. I mean, there's so many possibilities as to where this season can be 4 to 6 weeks from now. We could be talking about a resurgence. We've won winners of 5 out of 6, playing hot ball. No way you're taking Taylor Heineke out then. You could be talking about a team that's lost 5 out of 6. Season's dead as it gets, and they're looking to turn their attention to putting Sam Howell in the game. Who knows? But all I do know is Taylor Heineke's going to start Sunday against the Green Bay Packers, and this is his childhood team. We did this thing last year, the whole song and dance with him going to Lambeau, meeting Brett Favre, and we did all of that, okay? We don't need to do that shit again, okay? He's playing against Green Bay for the second time in his career. It was an opportunity of a lifetime for him. We went to Green Bay. It was one of the weirdest games of the season because we had every opportunity to win that game. We got to the red zone 5 times, didn't score a single point. That was the game where he dove for the end zone, and they said he gave himself up at the half-yard line, and we end up going for it and don't get it from the half-yard line. Threw interceptions in the end zone, missed field goals, blocked field goals, all kinds of foolishness happened in that game, and the defense actually played well in that ball game. There's so many different things that we could talk about with this game, but we've got so much time. It's a long week, being that we played on Thursday night last week. So we've got plenty of time to dissect this particular matchup and what Heineke being inserted into the lineup means for this football team. But I expect this offense to run a lot smoother with number 4 under center versus number 11. But again, you lose some things with Heineke being in the lineup, but you also gain a lot from him being in the lineup as well. We'll see which one prevails, whether the pros outweigh the cons or vice versa. I'd like to think that the pros are going to outweigh the cons because we weren't playing that well as an offense. We weren't scoring points. We weren't sustaining drives. We were horrible, 3 of 22 the last 2 weeks on third downs. The point production was way down, and we were putting a lot of stress on the defense. So, and again, we weren't taking care of the football. This past week against Chicago was the first week we did not have a turnover. So not a lot was going right. So at this point, what do you have to lose? Let's see what Heineke can do with that that mobility that he brings to the table, what that'll bring to this offense, and then him just knowing the offense and being able to play in a better timing and rhythm, going through his progressions, things of that nature, what that will do for this offense as well. So I'm anxious to see what it looks like, and I'm rooting for number 4 as always, but we know this isn't the long-term solution, which is ultimately what we want here in Washington. But if you're trying to have a season, Heineke probably gives you the best opportunity as we sit here on October the 17th. So we'll see what takes place. Let's get to in other news. And not really much here from a Washington standpoint. I will say this. We're going to take a trip around the NFC East. Before we do that, I want to make this statement. And I don't think I'm shocking anyone with this. I don't think most of you will disagree with this, but some of you will. We're the worst team in this division, and not just statistically, not just record-wise. There is a big gap between us and the rest of the division in at least one glaring area that makes us the worst team in the division. Hence, and I'll give you an examples. So, for instance, with the Eagles, they've got the best roster in the division, clearly, and we're way behind them in that department. That makes them better than us. Not just that they're 6-0, right? Not that they beat us 24-8 in week 3, but the fact that their roster is way better than ours puts them way ahead of us. The Dallas Cowboys have a way better quarterback situation, and not just Dak Prescott as their starter, which is, to me, the best quarterback in the division, but then Cooper Rush playing the way that he did as a backup. Their quarterback room, which was the thing that we thought we had, hey, our quarterback room, our whole room as a whole is really strong. Garbage, okay? Compared to Dallas and Dak Prescott, best quarterback in the division, Cooper Rush probably has ascended. Now, I don't know if I can call him the best backup quarterback in the division, but he's ascended a lot higher than he was prior to these 4 starts that he made this season, and 5 starts he's made this year and going 4-1 in those starts. The Cowboys have a much better quarterback situation, the best in the division, if you ask me, from starter to backup. And so they're way ahead of us there because we don't even have a starting quarterback really still. And then you look at the Giants, they're a much better coached football team than we are. It's not even close. They come in with a roster that does not have a ton of talent, especially on the offensive side. I think defensively we underrate what they have talent-wise, but they've got talent on defense. But offensively, there's not a lot there, and they've taken the little bit of stuff that they do have, and they've maximized it on both sides of the football, whether it be Wink Martindale and his ability to get that defense to play outstanding ball, to keep them in ball games, and then they strike at the end and find a way to win like they did against Green Bay and against the Baltimore Ravens, or it's the offense. Finding a way to manufacture offense with Bellinger at tight end, Saquon Barkley at running back, and a bevy of a revolving door of receivers. 1 week, Rondale Robinson is playing. The next week, he isn't. We haven't seen Kadarius Toney probably since week 1 or 2. They've gotten absolutely nothing out of Kenny Galladay. Darius Slayton here today, gone tomorrow. And they've already had one of their receivers go down for the entire season. in Sterling Shepard, and yet they continue to find ways to score points. So they're a way better coach ball club than us, and thus they're ahead of us as well. So we're lacking, man. We are absolutely lacking in what is the best division in football. I'm not going to lie to you. It made me sick to my stomach. I was jealous last night watching that Sunday night game with all that was on the line between two teams. One's undefeated at 5-0, the other's 4-1. You got Meek Mill performing at the beginning of the game, hyping up the crowd. It was electric. It was a raucous, crowd in Philadelphia. It's been a great Philadelphia sports town weekend, and I yearn for that. I was the one begging for that. It wasn't any of the other super friends. It wasn't Lord Brunson. It wasn't Law. It wasn't Bad Dog. They weren't yearning for these types of games and matchups. It was me. I wanted that. And it sucks because the person that wanted it the most for his team isn't even involved in the resurgence of the division. It's a sad state of affairs. But anyway, let's take a quick trip around the division. Obviously, Washington got it done on Thursday night, snapping a 4-game skid. They're 2-4 at the bottom of the division, bringing up the rear. The Cowboys and the Eagles did battle last night on Sunday Night Football. Eagles came out on top, 26-17, remain unbeaten, 6-0, and they are now 2 games clear of the Cowboys with a win over them as well. So the Cowboys are now essentially 3 games back, or at least 2.5, we'll call it, back of the Philadelphia Eagles. They have to play them again in Dallas late in the season as the Cowboys drop to 4-2. They've gotten some good news. They're going to get Dak Prescott back. He's been medically cleared by the team physicians, and he'll be able to play and suit up against the Detroit Lions in week number 7 at home. Lions are coming off of a bye. That's a really, really interesting game there, but the Cowboys will be favored in that ball game. They're 4-2 and in third place. Why are they in third place? Because the New York Giants refuse to lose. They are now 5-1 with a come-from-behind victory against the Baltimore Ravens. They were trailing in that game versus Baltimore 20-10. They rally back, score 14 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, win that game 24-20. Excuse me, and now make it 2 in a row or 3 in a row now for the Giants since the loss on Monday Night Football to the Dallas Cowboys. They've ran off 3 straight victories, and they're now 5-1 for first-year head coach Brian Daboll. And it's Eagles at 6-0. It's the Giants at 5-1. It's the Cowboys at 4-2, and Washington now at 2-4. This thing is far from over. We are the worst team in the best division of football. What does that mean? It means exactly what I just said. We're the worst team in the best division in football. Now, right now, it means that we suck, right? But it doesn't have to mean that at the end of the year. We can be the worst team in the best division in football, and that could mean 10-7, right? That could mean 9-8. We'll see what it means, down the road. We're trying to make that mean that this division, top to bottom, strongest in football, and every team in the division had a winning record. That's what we're looking to do. That's where we're aiming to go, trying to make the playoffs. And we want to be the first division since the new playoff format to be able to say, hey, entire division made the playoffs. It's feasible this year with how bad the NFC is as a conference. It's feasible that one division can get 4 teams in and occupy all 3 of the wild card spots. When you look around at the rest of the conference, just look at it this way. You've got the NFC North. Right now, the Minnesota Vikings are at 5-1, and the next closest team is the Green Bay Packers at 3-3. We're playing the Packers this week. We have a chance to even up our mark with the Packers at 3-4 on the season, and if we win the head-to-head, we'll have the tiebreaker over the Packers should it come to that later on in the season. We'll see. All right, but that's that division right there. No one else has to make the playoffs other than the team that wins that division. It doesn't look like there's going to be another team from that division other than whomever wins that division. That said, Green Bay could get hot. We know they're capable. They got Aaron Rodgers. We'll see what happens. The Vikings could fall off of a cliff. They've been winning a lot of close games. I'm not overly impressed with them to this point, but they're finding ways to win. They're 5-1, but we'll see, right? But that's a one division bid potentially. right? That's a one division bid. All right, NFC West. We thought this was going to be a super ultra competitive division with a ton of really good teams. This division stinks right now. Seattle, we thought was going to be trash. The Seattle Seahawks are right there in the mix at 3-3. You know, Arizona, we thought they were going to be better. They stink right now. If I'm not mistaken, that's a 2-win ball club at 2-4. You look at the Rams, they're struggling. They're 3-3. Easily could be, 2-4 right now, or even 1-5. They're still trying to figure some shit out. They're not a very good football team, though, as they sit there at 3-3 along with Seattle. And the 49ers just lost to the Atlanta Falcons. They're up and down, and they're struggling to be consistent. They're 3-3. So what I've essentially told you is that entire division is 3-3, and then one team's 2-4. And who knows what's going to happen? Two teams could emerge, right? DeAndre Hopkins comes back for the Arizona Cardinals, and he can make all the world difference for them. All right, but he could also come in there, help their offense, but it's not enough. So we'll see what happens. The Rams are struggling, and I don't see them turning it around without a bunch of healthy bodies, and they continue to get injured and have guys get banged up. They just lost their left tackle for the entire season. They continue to get banged up week after week. They have a lot going on there. That division, I think that's a one-bid division again. And then you go to the NFC South. We just knew Tampa was going to be, just like we thought with the Rams and the Packers. We just knew that the Buccaneers are going to be head and shoulders above the rest of their division. Well, guess what? They're tied at 3-3 after a debilitating loss on the road to a Steelers team that lost 38-3 a week ago to the Buffalo Bills. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers march in there and get their brains bashed in terms of physicality, and lose that game to the Pittsburgh Steelers, like 21-19, something along those lines. And they're 3-3. So are the Atlanta Falcons, who had an impressive win over the San Francisco 49ers. They're 3-3, right? And you look at the rest of that division, it's absolutely awful. Okay, the Saints are 2-4, and the Panthers are probably the worst team in football right now at 1-5. So it's a mess. The NFC as a whole, that conference is a mess. So all I'm saying to you is, if we turn shit around, and it's very possible, when you look at what we're doing defensively, I don't trust the secondary just like you don't trust the secondary. I get it. We still have holes, plenty of them. This is why we're not a good team, and this is why we're not mentioned with the rest of the division, because we have issues. However, there are things that we're doing well. And so this is a great opportunity to see if there's any life left in the season. I'll leave it at that. We have so many days this week to explore what I'm talking about. I just wanted to plant that seed. That's all I wanted to do. Some of you are going to tell me I'm crazy. We suck. There's no way we're turning this thing around. And I hear you loud and clear. And everything that you're saying, I can't tell you that you're wrong. Okay? I've watched it with my own eyes as well. So I know where you're coming from. But I'm just telling you that this season is drunk. I put this tweet out yesterday, and I put it out with purpose. I put it out for a reason, okay? Because I not only believe this, but I'm seeing it with my own eyes, and I can't believe what I'm seeing, but we're not dead. This season is drunk, and I'm still sipping slow. That's all I'm going to say to you. We sit in dead last in our division. We deserve to be in dead last. Doesn't mean we have to stay there, though. 1 week at a time. You can't win 4 games at once. You can only win 1. We've won 1. Now let's see if we can't take that goodwill, the good juju, the good feelings, the good vibes, but most importantly, the confidence that comes from winning a game. Let's see if we can't poly that into a second consecutive victory against a team that we probably have no business beating in the Green Bay Packers. We'll talk more about that during the week. If you're an MOBB member and you're a gold mob member, I'll be live tomorrow doing the film. A lot of you probably will be at work while I'm doing it, so you'll be able to watch the replay. If you're a Mob Squad member in general, 2 things. Gonna have the studs and duds for you tomorrow because I would have watched the film by then, so I'll have a clearer picture of who I felt like were studs and duds. And then also giving away tickets. Look, it's Aaron Rodgers. This may be your last time to see him live coming to FedEx Field, okay? Giving these tickets away. You're a Mob Squad member. You're on Patreon. go ahead, throw your bid in. All right. So I'll leave it. Tomorrow's video is when I will give you guys the instructions on what needs to be done for those tickets. But I just want to plant that seed in your brain as well, that giving away these tickets to see the Green Bay Packers coming to town. Aaron Rodgers, probably the last time you'll see him come to FedEx Field. So there's that. Anyway, I digress. I'm getting out of here. So much to talk about. There's probably a lot of excitement for some of you that Carson Wentz has gotten injured. I never want to see anybody get injured, especially a guy on this team. I wanted to see more of Wentz. I wanted to see him find a way to settle in behind an offensive line that we felt like was starting to stabilize itself, and see if he could, really start to get comfortable offensively. Doesn't seem like it's going to happen. You know what? I'm excited about Taylor Heinicke getting the opportunity. So in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20.